Hi, I'm Peter Kavanagh. Welcome back to our little mini series on the appearances, the resurrection appearances of Jesus Christ as recorded in the Gospels. This is part 2, and today we're looking at the Gospel of Luke. So you may already have read it in Luke's Gospel, chapter 24. Now, I think this is a fascinating chapter of the Bible and a fascinating part of the Easter story. I'm thinking particularly of the two on the road to Emmaus. It might have been two men, might have been a man and wife, who knows. And what amazed me when I first read it as a very young Christian was the fact that I didn't know the story. I'd done RE at school, etc., but seen a few Jesus films, but never knew or didn't know that this was part of the story. And so I always find it about how he disguises his appearance, etc. Anyway, just kind of fascinates me. But it also reminds me, to this day, in this particular season, when I go on my prescribed, daily walk, my little exercise bit that I'm allowed to do, and when I go for a little walk around the village here, and this story actually comes to my mind quite a lot, not just because I'm talking about it today, because quite often I see other people walking in the area here, and I'm fairly blessed because we have some reasonably decent places to walk. There's like a little wood, and there's sort of countryside path, and it's nice. I realise that we're very blessed. But sometimes I see like a family out walking, a man and wife, a mother and her daughter. I'm beginning to know these people's faces, if perhaps not their names, and it does remind me of the story of the two on the road to Emmaus. So I want us to ask the question today, what this might have to say to us today. This is part 2, and I wanted to call it Fresh Air, because as part of our COVID crisis experience, most of us are going out once a day on some sort of walk. And you'll probably go for this walk on Easter Saturday too. And so I want to ask you, I wonder if we can do, and I wonder if I can do, what these two people also did. So they began very downcast. It says that. They weren't very happy. They say that terrible phrase, "we had hoped." They were deeply disappointed because someone who they thought was the Messiah had died, and in their theology, that was it. They thought he was coming to get rid of the Romans. They didn't realise he was coming to get rid of sin and death. Anyway, that was a common misunderstanding in most first century people that had to be corrected along the way. But here we have two people who begin downcast, but by the end of their walk, which was probably about 7 miles, by the way, a bit longer than I'm going, but by the end of their walk, it says they were filled with joy, and their hearts were burning within them. That's the phrase. Did not our hearts burn within us, they say. So I want this to be true for me too. So I'm about to go out for my walk today. I might go out feeling downcast. I might go out having watched the news. And when we watch the news, we shouldn't be surprised to be downcast. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, but these are difficult times. And yet, by the end of my walk, if I invite the resurrected Jesus to walk with me like they did, then I can have the most amazing experience on my walk. What I find amazing as well is that they have a bit of a Q&A, don't they? A question and answer with him. So he doesn't just do all the talking on this occasion. They sort of ask him questions, and you just get the vibe that it's a little bit of a dialogue. I mean, he's doing the teaching, but they're having some dialogue with him. Hey, what about if we were to use our walks, our exercise slots, where we get out of the four walls, get away from the phone, get away from the telly and the news, even get away from chores that have to be done, and just be not only in the fresh air of the outside, but in the fresh air of God's presence. To enter into his presence, to be able to have Q&A with him, to be able to enjoy his sweet presence with us. And for sure, we can go from being downcast to having our hearts burning within us. Luke tells us that what Jesus did for that couple was not so much pray for them. He didn't bless them. They didn't get a prophecy. They didn't particularly get their futures mapped out for them. But it says this: he opened the scriptures to them. What an amazing walk they had that day. I'd like to think that we could have the same. And it finishes with two things. Number one, after he's disappeared from their sight, number one, they want to tell people all about it. And number two, just picking up on that little story, he sort of makes out as though he's going to go on, but they urge him to come in to their home. And so we have this theme again. In part one, Jesus would meet the disciples in Galilee, in their home. In part two, we have Jesus coming alongside people, walking in the countryside or walking outside, just like we might be doing today. But then wanting to come in to their homes at the end of that walk. Anyone got an idea what I'm maybe trying to say? He's the same Jesus. He wants to do the same things. So have a look at that today. Luke chapter 24. But more than reading the story, let it be your story. Take these times to talk to him, to Q&A with him. He's no different. And maybe we can go out on a walk low and come back, our hearts burning and want him to come back with us inside our home. Which brings us to our final part tomorrow. The Gospel of John, where despite the locked doors, someone is able to walk through them and breathe the life of the Holy Spirit into those inside. Oh, spoilers. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. God bless you and enjoy your walk.